This is the second story in our series, Who Was He?, where we uncover the lives of the greatest minds and forgotten legends of history. In our last episode, we met Hippocrates. Today, our journey takes us deeper into the ancient world, to a man whose genius defied empires. He was called a magician of numbers, a master of machines, and a defender of his city. A man who claimed, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world." Today, we bring you the untold, dramatic story of Archimedes, the inventor, the mathematician, the man who turned thought into power. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear is more than history. It's a legend. In the bustling Greek colony of Syracuse, Sicily, a boy was born around 287 BC, who would one day change the world: Archimedes. Syracuse, founded by Corinthian settlers, was no ordinary city. It was a place where ships from all over the Mediterranean docked, where philosophers debated in crowded marketplaces, and where marble temples reflected the golden light of the Sicilian sun. Amid this vibrant setting, Archimedes grew up, the son of Phidias, a quiet astronomer who spent nights charting the stars from rooftops. Phidias was no ordinary man. Whispers suggested he was distantly connected to King Hero II, the ruler of Syracuse, whose court would later become the stage for Archimedes' inventions. Some even claimed Phidias passed secret knowledge from Egyptian astronomers, hinting at ideas far ahead of their time, perhaps even the notion that the Earth revolved around the sun. Young Archimedes wandered Syracuse's alleys, carving shapes in sand and listening to debates about geometry. He built toy models of machines from wood, already showing signs of brilliance. A strange omen marked his childhood. During an eclipse, his father predicted Archimedes sketched a device to capture the sun's fire, a shadow of the legendary death ray he would later be linked to. Syracuse, positioned between Rome and Carthage, was a jewel both powers wanted. For the boy genius, it was a place of wonder and danger. What path would he take? Toward hidden wisdom in Alexandria, or toward secrets buried in the desert sands? His fate was already unfolding, but few could imagine how far his mind would reach. As a young man, Archimedes sailed across the Mediterranean to Alexandria, Egypt, the shining capital of knowledge. There stood the great library, said to hold every scroll ever written, and the Mausion, a center of learning unlike any other. Though Euclid himself had died years earlier, his geometry shaped every discussion in those halls. Here Archimedes met great minds like Conon of Samos, who guided him in advanced mathematics, and Eratosthenes, who would later measure the Earth's circumference. Their friendships went beyond scholarly debates. They exchanged letters full of warmth and grief, including one where Archimedes mourned Conon's passing. But Archimedes also carried a streak of cunning. Fearing that others would steal his work, he sometimes placed deliberate mistakes in his writings. Those who tried to plagiarize him unknowingly exposed themselves. One such trap appeared in his treatise, On Spirals. It was also in Egypt, some believe, that Archimedes devised his famous screw for raising water, inspired by Nile irrigation techniques. Though the exact origins remain uncertain, his genius was clearly blossoming. In secret, he also confessed in a lost work called The Method that he used mechanical reasoning, balancing shapes as if they were weights on a lever, to discover mathematical truths. It was unorthodox, even scandalous, to mix physics with geometry. At night, under the Egyptian stars, Archimedes pondered infinity itself. Yet, Alexandria was no safe haven. Knowledge was guarded jealously, and whispers of spies followed him. When Archimedes finally returned to Syracuse, he carried not only scrolls and secrets, but ideas powerful enough to reshape kingdoms. Back in Syracuse, Archimedes dazzled King Hero II with his obsession over levers. He famously declared, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world." At first, courtiers laughed, until Archimedes proved it. One day, he was challenged to move a massive warship stranded on shore. Alone, using a clever system of pulleys and levers, Archimedes hauled the ship into the water as if it were a toy. The crowd gasped. To them, it seemed sorcery. To Archimedes, it was mathematics made real. His treatise on the equilibrium of planes explained the principle clearly. Balance depends on the ratio of distances and forces. Yet Archimedes was not content with theory. He dreamed of cosmic applications, wondering if levers could explain planetary motion itself, ideas centuries ahead of his time. But even brilliance carried danger. Once, a lever snapped during a demonstration, injuring an attendant and reminding everyone that great power has consequences. Rumors spread of Archimedes conducting secret experiments beneath the city, combining levers, weights, and hydraulics in ways too dangerous to reveal. For Hero, Archimedes' genius meant power over enemies. For Archimedes, it was a glimpse of the universe's hidden order. He had shown he could move a ship. Could he one day move the heavens themselves? Archimedes didn't stop at levers. In his workshop, he combined ropes, wheels, and force to invent the compound pulley, a device that allowed one man to lift enormous weights with ease. Sailors once strained for hours, hauling heavy cargo. With Archimedes' pulleys, the same task could be done smoothly by a single person. To prove it, Archimedes stunned King Hero by launching the colossal warship Syracuse. Using nothing but pulleys and a windlass, he slid the ship into the water with effortless grace. The king was astonished, and whispers spread that Archimedes had harnessed hidden powers. But this was more than showmanship. Letters he wrote to Eratosthenes hint that Archimedes experimented with pulleys for measuring distances, perhaps even designing early odometers. Others claim he crafted mechanical spheres that mimicked planetary orbits, a forerunner of the Antikythera mechanism discovered centuries later. Yet danger lurked. Courtiers jealous of his influence spread rumors that his machines could turn against Syracuse. A pulley accident nearly crushed an advisor, sparking fears of sabotage. Still, Archimedes pressed forward, exploring how mechanics could serve both peace and war. The pulley, simple in appearance, carried hidden power. It could raise a ship, or lift Syracuse itself above its enemies. But in the wrong hands, could it also bring destruction? Archimedes' inventions walked a thin line between marvel and menace. In 214 BC, the might of Rome descended on Syracuse. The city seemed doomed, until Archimedes turned his genius to defense. His machines transformed the city walls into an impenetrable fortress. Foremost was the terrifying Claw of Archimedes, a crane-like arm that reached out from the walls, seized Roman ships with iron hooks, and hurled them into the sea. Soldiers screamed as their vessels were lifted, rocked, and smashed against the rocks below. Plutarch later described the carnage in awe. Archimedes also refined catapults that launched stones and darts with deadly accuracy. Some tales even speak of a steam-powered cannon, using boiling water to hurl projectiles, though its truth is debated. And then there are the burning mirrors, polished bronze plates said to focus sunlight onto enemy sails, setting them ablaze. Historians disagree on whether this truly happened, but the legend endures. Day and night, Archimedes worked in torchlit chambers, sketching designs while the city shook with battle. His machines inspired terror in the Romans. So great was their fear that soldiers hesitated to approach Syracuse, convinced Archimedes could strike them from anywhere. Yet even miracles have limits. A malfunction once spared a Roman ship, raising suspicion that traitors lurked within Syracuse. As the siege dragged on, Archimedes grew weary, his body weakened by sleepless nights. His brilliance bought time, but could it save the city forever? For a while, one man's mind held back the greatest empire on earth. But no defense lasts forever. Long before the siege, Archimedes made one of his most famous discoveries, in a bath. King Hiero suspected that his golden crown had been adulterated with silver. Archimedes was tasked with solving the puzzle without destroying the crown. As he lowered himself into a bath, Archimedes noticed the water rise and spill over. The greater the volume he submerged, the more water overflowed. Suddenly it struck him. The displacement of water revealed volume. By comparing the crown's weight with the amount of water it displaced, he could test its purity. Overjoyed, he is said to have leapt from the bath, running naked through the streets, shouting, "Eureka! I have found it!" But not all accounts agree. Some suggest he used a quieter method, submerging weights in water and carefully measuring their buoyancy. Either way, the principle was the same. An object immersed in fluid is pushed upward by a force equal to the weight of the displaced liquid. The discovery revolutionized science, opening the field of hydrostatics. With it, Archimedes could design better ships, test metals, and solve mysteries of balance. But the story carries irony. By exposing the goldsmith's fraud, Archimedes also revealed uncomfortable truths. Wealth could be false, appearances deceptive. His brilliance uncovered more than a crown's impurity. It exposed human greed. The law of buoyancy would float across centuries, but for Archimedes, it was also a reminder. Truth, once revealed, can be as dangerous as it is glorious. Archimedes was not only an engineer of machines, but also an explorer of invisible worlds, numbers, infinity, and the geometry of the cosmos. While others measured fields and built temples, Archimedes ventured into abstract realms few dared to imagine. He devised ingenious methods to calculate areas, volumes, and curves, laying the foundation for calculus nearly 2,000 years before Newton and Leibniz. By inscribing polygons within circles, he came remarkably close to discovering pi, estimating it between 3.1408 and 3.1429, a precision unmatched for centuries. But Archimedes' true obsession was infinity. In his work, The Sand Reckoner, he shocked the ancient world by attempting to count the uncountable, the grains of sand that could fill the universe. To do so, he invented a number system capable of expressing figures larger than anyone thought possible. To his contemporaries, this was madness. To us, it was a glimpse of modern mathematics. And yet, Archimedes knew the danger of his discoveries. Numbers, he warned, can trap the mind as surely as chains can bind the body. He wrote in riddles, often disguising his most daring conclusions. Later scholars suspected that within these hidden writings lay ideas of calculus, limits, and even atomic theory. The Roman generals feared his machines. Few realized his mathematics might be the greater weapon, a power that could outlast empires. But Archimedes himself treated numbers not as tools of conquest, but as keys to understanding the eternal. In the silence of his study, surrounded by wax tablets and sand diagrams, he touched infinity and left humanity forever changed. Among Archimedes' most enduring legends is the death ray, a weapon that supposedly harnessed the sun's power to set enemy ships aflame. According to later accounts, he arranged polished bronze shields into a giant mirror, focusing beams of light onto Roman sails until they burst into fire. For centuries, the tale has divided historians. Some dismiss it as impossible, arguing the mirrors could never generate such heat. Others claim it may have worked under rare, perfect conditions. In 1973, a team at MIT even recreated the experiment and managed to ignite wood at a distance, suggesting the story might not be entirely fantasy. Yet even if the death ray was myth, it tells us something vital. Archimedes' reputation was so extraordinary that people believed he could command the very sun. To his enemies, he was not merely an inventor, he was a magician, a man who bent nature to his will. Still, myths carry danger. Roman chroniclers exaggerated his powers, spreading fear among their troops. Some soldiers reportedly refused to approach the city by day, dreading invisible fire from the walls. Perhaps Archimedes himself laughed at such rumors, or perhaps he quietly encouraged them, knowing fear could be as strong a weapon as steel. Whether real or imagined, the death ray burned itself into history, not as fact, but as legend. And sometimes, legends last longer than truth. By 212 BC, the siege of Syracuse had dragged on for years. Archimedes' machines had repelled wave after wave of Roman assaults. But inside the city, food dwindled, morale cracked, and whispers of betrayal grew louder. Archimedes himself was exhausted. Nights spent sketching, calculating, and repairing engines had aged him beyond his years. His students begged him to rest, but he pressed on. "If I stop," he muttered, "the city stops." Then came the betrayal. Roman forces, aided by treachery within Syracuse, breached the defenses under cover of night. The mighty machines lay silent, their operators slain or bribed. Archimedes' genius, unmatched against Roman strength, could not fight treason. As Roman soldiers poured through the streets, panic erupted. Fires consumed homes. Families fled to temples. Archimedes, however, remained calm. Some say he continued working on a geometric problem, refusing to abandon his sand diagrams even as chaos thundered outside. For the Romans, Archimedes was a prize. Orders were given to capture him alive. Rome wanted his brilliance, not his corpse. But fate had other plans. The siege had ended. The walls had fallen. And with them, the last sanctuary of the world's greatest mind was crumbling. The question was no longer whether Archimedes could save Syracuse. It was whether he could save himself. History records the death of Archimedes with both clarity and contradiction. The Roman general Marcellus, who admired his genius, ordered his men to spare him. But in the chaos of conquest, orders were drowned by bloodlust. One account tells that Archimedes was approached by a soldier while tracing figures in the sand. "Do not disturb my circles," he said calmly. The soldier, impatient, struck him down. Another version claims he was killed while refusing to follow soldiers immediately, insisting first on finishing his problem. Yet another whispers that he was slain simply for refusing to surrender his instruments. Whatever the truth, Archimedes fell not on the battlefield, but in his own home, unarmed and absorbed in thought. To some, this was tragedy, the brightest mind extinguished by ignorance. To others, it was poetry. Archimedes dying as he had lived, lost in the world of ideas. Marcellus was said to grieve his death, even burying him with honor. But honor could not bring him back. With Archimedes perished not just a man, but an era of Greek science. Rome gained a city, but the world lost a universe. For centuries after his death, Archimedes' writings circulated in fragile manuscripts. Many were lost to fire, war, or neglect. But fate played tricks, sometimes hiding his genius, sometimes revealing it anew. In the 10th century, a Byzantine scribe copied Archimedes' treatises onto parchment. Centuries later, that very parchment was scraped clean and reused to write a Christian prayer book. His words were buried beneath hymns, forgotten in plain sight. This Archimedes' palimpsest lay hidden until the 20th century, when scholars used ultraviolet light to uncover the erased text. Inside were revelations, methods for calculating infinity, puzzles of combinatorics, and insights centuries ahead of their time. It was as if Archimedes had left a message in a bottle across millennia, waiting for minds ready to understand. Yet even now, much is missing. Stories whisper of lost works, treatises on mechanics, astronomy, and secret war engines that vanished into the dark. Did he design steam-powered devices? Did he approach the theory of atoms? We may never know. What survives is enough to prove one truth. Archimedes' mind stretched beyond the limits of his age, and perhaps beyond ours. Archimedes' life ended in blood, but his influence never died. His principles of levers and buoyancy still govern engineering. His geometry still teaches mathematicians. His inventions echo in cranes, catapults, and even spacecraft. Centuries later, Galileo and Newton stood on his shoulders. Galileo called him superhuman. Newton confessed that his own discoveries were possible only because Archimedes had paved the way. In modern times, submarines rely on his laws of flotation. Space engineers calculate orbits with his mathematics. Even artificial intelligence and quantum computing trace their lineage to the groundwork of logic and numbers he laid. And yet, Archimedes was more than a scientist. He was a symbol of curiosity itself, the restless human drive to ask why and how. He showed that thought could be more powerful than armies, and that ideas could outlive empires. Syracuse fell, Rome rose and crumbled, kingdoms burned and faded, but Archimedes remains, a voice whispering across centuries. Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world. The man who once lifted ships now lifts civilizations. His machines may be dust, but his mind is eternal. At the end, I tell you conclusion of the eternal story of Archimedes. Archimedes was more than a mathematician, more than an inventor, and more than a defender of his city. He was proof that the power of the mind can rival the power of armies. His discoveries, born from curiosity, persistence, and imagination, still shape our world over 2,000 years later. From the shout of Eureka in a humble bathhouse to the roar of machines defending Syracuse, his journey reminds us that great ideas never truly die. They outlive wars, kings, and empires, carrying their light into the future. And that is why Archimedes' name endures, not only as a genius of numbers and machines, but as a timeless symbol of human potential. His story challenges us to look deeper, think bolder, and never stop asking questions. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We bring you tales of forgotten legends, untold truths, and extraordinary minds, just like Archimedes. Stay with us because history is full of stories waiting to be uncovered.